Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
Okay, Dave, that's it. Screw you and your college flunkies. I've had enough of this from you and from everyone else. I know what you guys are trying to do. Break me down, drive me out of the force. Well, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a lame prank like this to get Curtis Mooney to throw in his badge, so fuck you. Over.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Delusions of Grandeur What's in My Room episode. And what's in my room, ladies and gentlemen? A box. And this is the last box. This is the last little bit from one of the boxes that was sent by my friend Tito. And this is part 3 of all of that. So let's kind of get started here. Well, hold on. Here's some more. Okay, so this is where I'll start. These are the arrows, the rest of the arrows that I ended up getting from these 2 boxes. This is Scared Stiff, and it came with the slip cover. See, this is the second feature by Richard Friedman. So this looks kind of fancy-smancy. Next I have Chill Factor, which evidently from director Christopher Webster. He was a producer of Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. So that's the Chill Factor. Next I have Strip Nude for Your Killer, which is directed by Andrea Bianchi. That's the Blu-ray. This is the special edition version. Next I have Al Pacino's Cruising, which is a film by William Friedkin, who is the director of The Exorcist, I think. Yeah. So that's arrows as well. Next I have a film called The Possessed. And this is a proto-giallo based on one of Italy's most notorious crimes, the Alleghe killings, and adapted from the book on the case by acclaimed literary figure Giovanni Camiso. co-directed by Luigi Bazzoni, The Fifth Chord and Footprints on the Moon, which I have The Fifth Chord around here somewhere. But yeah, there we have The Possessed. I haven't watched that yet. Next, I have Toys Are Not for Children. And evidently that's a film by Stanley H. Brasloff. A psychological trauma and aberrant sexuality abound in this twisted 1972 tale of a young woman whose severe daddy issues send her on an unforgettably bleak downward spiral. Yearning for the love of her absentee father, Jamie inhabits an infantized world surrounded by toys. And I'm not going to read any more on that, so you can definitely check that out later if you want. Next, I have Trapped Alive. Looks exciting. It was filmed in 1988 under the title of Forever Mine, but not released until 1993. Trapped Alive, also known as Trapped, was the first film to come out of Wisconsin's now defunct Windsor Lake Studios, which would go on to produce a number of features under the Fangoria Films label in the early 90s, including 1992's Bruce Campbell starring Mind Warp. Next, I'll have a series of Vinegar Syndrome titles. So, first up I have here is Jeff Lester, Adrian Sachs, Shannon Tweed, and Tippi Hedren in The Cold of the Night, and it's a film by Nico Mastorakis. Looks kind of interesting. Then I have The Corruption of Chris Miller. Now, Vinegar Syndrome always comes with these lenticular covers, and this is a Gaiolo from filmmaker Juan Antonio Bardem, Death of a Cyclist. So, The Corruption of Chris Miller. Next I have Tinseltown. Director Carter Stevens of Roller Babies. Blu-ray DVD combo pack. And it's got the double-sided, I guess it's, there's, yeah, you can switch it around if you really wanted to, but this did not have the lenticular cover on it. Which doesn't matter to me. Next I have Hell Comes to Frogtown. And that comes apart like that. And this is evidently oh jeez, comes out like that, and evidently it just kind of stays like that. So Donald G. Jackson is the director of Hell Comes to Frogtown, and there are actually 3 or 4 of those out there. Actually, like 3. So this is actually a very nice set for Vinegar Syndrome. I'm impressed with the cover, at least. I'm gonna put that back on somehow, some way. There we go. There's the, and there we go. Next I have a film by Musha, featuring music by Soft Cell, called The Coder. It's another Vinegar Syndrome title. Interesting cover. Next, I have the long out of print Mausoleum with its lenticular cover. That's directed by Michael Dugan. And I actually watched it. It actually had some. It was remastered, really good. I mean, it's more green than anything else. More green than fuzzy. Next, I have Dominique is Dead, or is she? Which this one is from Michael Anderson, who directed Logan's Run. This film is also known as Dominique is Dead. And yeah, so that should be interesting. Next, I have Putney Swope, the Truth and Soul movie. And that is Robert Downey Sr.'s film. Evidently, it was considered a masterpiece of the 60s. Featuring a supporting performance from character actor Alan Garfield of Nashville. And alongside, evidently, a cameo of Mel Brooks is in here. So, yeah. Putney Swope, never seen it nor heard of it before I was sent this. Next, I have Night Owl, which was a Sub Rosa Cinema film. Which, when I get to my ends, I will. This is directed by Jeffrey Arsenault. So, there's audio commentary with the director, an interview with the director, an interview with James Rafferty, an interview with actress Karen Wexler, another interview of Jeffrey Arsenault, some original cast auditions. So it looks like Vinegar Syndrome actually went all out and made sure that the director was a part of this whole thing. Now, I'm sure that Bill Rebane was not thinking of just getting his film out there on a nice release. He could have been more involved in that project. I wish he could have been, because I really think that he's a really cool man. I got the chance to interview Bill Rebane at one point in time, and that's up on Spotify if you ever want to check that out. This one is called Taking Tiger Mountain, and it's directed by Tom Huckabee and Kent Smith. It's a Vinegar Syndrome title. From Willius S. Burroughs' classic short story Blade Runner. So I'm curious as to what that is about. Next, I have a whole bunch of more of these Vinegar Syndrome titles. This one is called A Climax of Blue Power. It's a suspenseful and brutal hardcore roughie from director Lee Frost of The Black Gestapo. Stars I. William Quinn from Love Me Deadly, Angelia Carnan from Psycho from Texas, Wes Bishop from Dixie Dynamite. This notorious classic has long been available only in low-quality VHS source bootlegs, but Vinegar Syndrome is bringing it to Blu-ray, uncut and restored from the best-known surviving film elements. So, the climax of Blue Power. Next, I have Mascara. The Experience. The Expectation. The Climax. Directed by Henry Picard. A complex psychological drama written and directed by Henry Picard. Babylon and Pink. Mascara features supporting performances from Lisa Kentrise, Tiffany Clark, Ron Jeremy, Bobby Astaire, and Robert Kerman. Produced, photographed, and uncredited and co-directed by Robert Findlay, and scored by Walter Sear. Is an unforgettable exploration into the sexual psyche and comes to Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome, newly restored in 2K from its original negative, and featuring new interviews with Finlay as well as co-star Lee Garrell, both moderated by historian Casey Scott. So there we have Mascara. Next I have 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy. It's directed by Jimmy Boy L. It was shot under the more appropriate title of Nothing Sacred, as a sexual fever dream laced with astute commentary on religion, class, and general mysticism. Written by Nicholas George and photographed by Francis X. Wolf of Night Dreams, and with a throbbing jazz-infused original soundtrack composed by Joseph Della of Bad Lieutenant and The Addiction. 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy has long only been viewable in poor quality and censored editions. So there we have 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy. Next I have Wacko, which is a raucous parody of horror films and T-sex comedies, predating the Scary Movie franchise by nearly 2 decades. Director Graydon Clark's Joysticks, Wacko features a mind-blowing ensemble cast, including Joe Don Baker of Goldeneye and Fletch, Stella Stevens, The Poseidon Adventure, George Kennedy from Charade, Charles Napier from the Blues Brothers and Super Vixens, Julia Duffy from The Doctors, and Andrew Dice Clay in his first feature film role. Never officially released on DVD and barely available in any format since the 80s. There we have Wacko. Next I have Hellmaster, which is directed by... It was a Detroit-shot regional horror movie made at the decline of the direct-to-video era. Hellmaster was the first feature from cult filmmaker Douglas Schultz of Dark Fields and co-stars David Enge, Dawn of the Dead, combining gothic horror and a creature-filled narrative trappings with intensely colorful and Argento-inspired visuals. Courtesy of acclaimed cinematographer Michael Goy of American Horror Story, Hellmaster was originally titled Them, but was subsequently re-edited with new footage also added and released straight to video and cable several years after its initial completion. Vinegar Syndrome presents this fascinating slice of creature horror in its original theatrical Them version for the first time on a home video, along with its more commonly seen Hellmaster recut, newly restored in 4K from the 35mm original negative under supervision from cinematographer Michael Goy. So there we have Hellmaster. Next I have The Pink Ladies, starring Vanessa Del Rio, Samantha Fox, Marlene Willoughby, Deborah Grant, and Richard Boca. Mixing light comedy with touches of low-key surrealism, director Roger Watkins weaves a sensual tableau that simultaneously satirizes suburban sexual mores while exploring the hidden pleasures that even the most seemingly chaste housewives and businessmen can't help but enjoy. So there we have The Pink Ladies. Next I have Pledge Night. Directed by Paul Ziller. It's kind of a supernatural slasher sex comedy, kind of post-Animal House. So that should be interesting. That's also Vinegar Syndrome. Play Dead. Let's see if I... Yep, Trauma. This used to be a Trauma film. A low-key Texas lensed supernatural thriller that was produced by a construction company. Peter Whitman's Play Dead mixes southern melodrama and a smattering of TNA alongside its requisite bloodshed and occult-tinged twists. Given only a scant theatrical release before being dumped to video, Vinegar Syndrome brings this regional sleeper to Blu-ray, newly restored in 2K from its original 35mm interpositive. Next I have The Passing. A 7-year passion project for director, writer, producer, and co-star John Huckert. The Passing is a dazzling micro-budget examination of love, loneliness, and the fear of death, set against an increasingly surreal science fiction and horror background as it builds to its unforgettable and unsettling body transfusion-filled climax. Barely available after its one-week theatrical run, The Passing comes to Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome in a loaded special edition and newly restored from the best surviving film elements. So there we have The Passing. Next I have Elves. Carcinoma, which this is a film that is directed by Marion Dora. It's on DVD, it's on Blu-ray, and it's based on a true story. Carcinoma chronicles the trials and tribulations of a man diagnosed with colorectal cancer, who refuses treatment and establishes a carnal fixation on the tumor that slowly siphons the life out of him. Definitely not recommended for the average hypochondriac or persons who suffer from a deep-seated fear of the inevitable bodily decay, carcinoma explores the vast array of emotions and mental states that accompany the diagnosis of terminal illness. The manifestation of the tumor is pathologically exaggerated over the course of a 2-year period, where the character experiences phases of aggression counteracted by periods of non-aggression, and then descends into a deep depression before suppressing the situation through denial. Eventually, the man accepts the tumor as part of his body, which eventually evolves into an erotic obsession. Dora's most bitingly visceral and horrifyingly human sorore into sick, sadistic cinema yet. From Lacey Page. Next I have The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which that stars Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman. Border Run with Sharon Stone and Billy Zane. Retro Media Blu-ray of Snow Beast. The Evil Within. This one is directed by Andrew Getty, I think. Emile. Matt Dillon in a George Leto production called Over the Edge. Sexy Evil Genius, directed by Sean Pillar. And I think I already showed this, Elves. Collide, directed by Aaron Greeby. Logan Lucky, should be interesting. Here's another American genre film archive of God Monster of Indian Flats. And that is... Oh, it's got a 2K scan of The Legend of Bigfoot as well on here. So... Director Frederick C. Hobbs. Next I have The Wicked One, which is directed by Tori Jones. Then I have Liam Neeson in Taken 2, the unrated cut. Let's see. Directed by Oliver Megaton. And this is from MGM Studios. It's Dressed to Kill. It's a Brian De Palma film. Next I have Batman Assault on Arkham. Yeah, Assault on Arkham DVD. Here's another Vinegar Syndrome title. This says Battle for the Lost Planet and Mutant War on it. those are both directed by Brett Piper. And they're definitely inspired by Ray Harryhausen. So that should be an interesting watch. Next, I have a couple of Severin films here. Let me bring out a few more. So Severin Films brought back Anthropophagus. By Joe D'Amato. It's also been known as the Grim Reaper. The Horror of Party Beach, which is directed by Del Tenney. Blackenstein on Blu-ray, which that was directed by William A. Levy. Next of Kin, which that was directed by Tony Williams. Mondo Freudo and Mondo Bizarro, as well as Eco the Forbidden with Severin and Something Weird. So that's a 2 Blu-ray set of those. That should be interesting as well. So those are some Severin films. Let's see if I can't put that one over here. This one goes here. The Blackenstein. Alrighty, let's see what else is here. Here's some Code Red. Code Red. White Ghost. Directed by B.J. Davis. This is the uncut version of White Ghost. Should be interesting. This one is Code Red, and it's called Point Doom. This is directed by Art Camacho. It's got Richard Grieco, Jennifer Odell, Andrew Dice Clay, John Enos III, and Ice-T in it. And music by Motley Crue, Ice-T, White Zombie, Motorhead, and Duff McKagan. Next I have Screams of a Winter Night. And that's from Code Red Blue. Next I have Dead Pit from Code Red. This one's from Gravitas Ventures. It's called The Barn. And it's directed by Matt Burois. Here is a DreamWorks film called The Croods. Next I have Torment on Blu-ray. That is from Unearthed Films, and it's directed by Adam Ford. Cannibal Cop, Donald Farmer, I believe, directed that one. The Victors Alone, which if you ever get the House That Dreaded Sundown, this is actually on the extra disc, on the bonus disc, or is, and I think it deserves its own film actually, own copy. So I'm glad that the Victors actually, and it's directed by Charles B. Pierce, the guy who did The Legend of Boggy Creek. So I'm glad that it got its own release. This is Scream Factory's Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox, directed by Rod Daniel. Next, I have Ghost Stories, directed by Jeremy Dyson and Andy Nyman. Of course, there's that stupid fresh Rotten Tomatoes thing. See, I don't think that I don't think too much about Rotten Tomatoes at all. Most of them are filled with people who have never been part of a film in any way, shape, or form in the process of it. Next, I have Morgan, which is directed by Luke Scott. I have not watched this as of yet, but I definitely plan to. Seems to be like a futuristic thing. Next, I have The Last Survivors, directed by Tom Hammock. Alrighty. I also have Colin Farrell and Rachel Weisz in The Lobster. And that was directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Panic in the Streets. That's a noir film directed by Elia Kazan. Stick that in the peas. Man from Earth, Halogen. That stars David Lee Smith, Brittany Curran, William Catt, Carlos Knight, Sterling Knight, Akemi Look, Michael Dorn, and Vanessa Williams. Directed by Richard Schenkman. So that should be interesting. Next, I have Mirror Mirror 2, Raven Dance on Blu-ray from DarkForceDVD.com. And that's directed by Jimmy Lifton. So that should be an interesting release to watch. Next, I have a John Carpenter double feature Blu-ray. This is an interesting combo pack. This is an all-region Blu-ray of John Carpenter's Vampires and Ghost on Mars. Next, this is Scream Factory's Ejecta. And that's directed by Matt Weil and Chad Archibald. Then I have Hammer Films double feature of Maniac and Die, My Darling. First one, Maniac, directed by Michael Carreras, and the second one is directed by Silvio Marizano. So I'll stick that in my H's over here. Next, I have Pierce Brosnan in IT. Have not watched this yet. It's directed by John Moore. I'll stick this in my I section. Next, I have Stephen Moyer from that vampire True Blood, from True Blood, in a film called Evidence. So I should definitely be checking that out eventually. Gonna stick that in the G's right there. Teen Wolf. The Evictors. Give me a moment. Okay, that goes down here. Evidence. Okay, Battle of the Lost Planet. Stick that one up there. Okay, so the last couple that are here. I guess this is something that he sent along. How romantic. Interesting. So next I have Blu-ray DVD combo for A Cure for Wellness. I actually really like that film. I'll stick that. That is directed by Gore Verbinski. I really liked that one. Next I have a limited edition of number 16 out of 100 for a film by Jimmy Screamer Claus. And it's called When Blackbirds Fly. I'm going to stick this one up here. Next, I have a film called The Undying Monster. And that is from Kino Lorber. That is directed by John Bram. It's from 1942. So I'm going to stick that over here. This is one of my personal favorites. I really like this one. This one's called Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice. And it was filmed in 1969, and it was directed by Lee H. Katzin. And it's basically about a woman who ended up burying or getting buried in her own garden. Okay, so this one's called I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. And it's from 1990. It's from Kino Lorber. And I guess it's directed by Dirk Campbell. So, but the film stars Neil Morrissey, Michael Elphick, Anthony Daniels, and Burt Kwouk. Should be an interesting film. I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. God. So, because I hadn't actually gotten Get Out, I ended up getting Get Out. But it didn't get out. You hear the pun there? It's directed by Jordan Peele, and those of you who don't know it, see it. Then I had ended up getting a copy of Jordan Peele's second film called Us. I think this is the second one. Yeah, I liked it. Different. Let's see, where do I stick that? Right down there. Okay. Next, I ended up buying a copy of The Game on Steelbook. Should watch that one again. I think that one's got Michael Douglas in there. Might be something different to watch. But next I have The Satanist, which it includes Sisters in Leather, I guess. It was directed by Zoltan G. Spencer, otherwise known as... Oh, wait, no. But it's from Garage House Pictures. So The Satanist. Yeah. And then, of course, this is The Dismembered. This one's from 1962. This one's from 1968. So The Dismembered and The Satanist are both Blu-rays that were distributed by Garage House Pictures. Should be interesting, to say the least. Going to check those out eventually. And I think that's all that I have so far. I'll probably have a newer video coming out eventually. But definitely check out my previous videos and whatnot. So in any case, gonna have some more cool stuff coming. And I hope that you enjoy my ramblings on these films. Some of them I have seen, some of them I have not. So definitely, if you get a chance, check them out in the near future. Um, I personally love collecting shit. So in any case, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are, and come back and visit me on What's in My Room next time.
You were good, kid, real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see?